fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. And today I'm super stoked to be introducing you to one of our OG members of the Unicorn Society. Been with us for all 5+ years we've been doing this. It's Diane Flores. Welcome, Diane.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so excited to be on the podcast. I love it.
I'm so excited to be having you. Not only have you been a Unicorn Society member forever, but you're the owner and founder of Venus Fitness Studio, which we're going to be talking about. And you also are a podcaster, and you have your own podcast called Boss Bitch Radio, which we're also going to be talking about. And so we have so much to talk about today. And it's also crazy to me that I haven't had you on sooner. I feel like there's so many things for us to talk about. So I'm so glad we're finally doing this.
Me too. I'm excited. I love listening. So I hope to provide some value to your listeners. So
yeah, I'm sure you will. So let's maybe just give people a little orientation. So you just talk a little bit about what is Venus Fitness Studios. Well, actually, we'll talk more about Boss Bitch Radio in a minute, but talk a little bit about your gym. And if you don't mind, maybe just share a little bit about what your experience has been in Unicorn Society since you've been in since the beginning. You've seen us since day one. So maybe just give a little background for everyone listening.
Sure. I've had the business for almost 16 years. I'll give you guys the Cliff's Notes condensed version. So next year will be 16 years, and it's morphed from originating as a pole dancing studio to a pole dancing / group fitness boot camp style studio, to then 2020 came along and I just jumped into my passion, which is bodybuilding and like body transformation with weight training. So it has evolved quite significantly over 16 years and has had many twists and turns. But now we cater to, all women, and it's exclusively semi-private training. So it's one trainer to 4 clients at a time. And all of our training is done exactly how I train myself for shows. But it's a lot of people think like, oh, you train bodybuilders. It's like the 1% of our clientele. Most of the clients that come in are soccer moms, grandmas, and they just want to change the shape of their body with resistance training, but terrified to go into a gym setting. So that's what we specialize in. And, I've had a business coach since 2012 in some capacity. And I thought I wanted to take my direction really online with a lot of my offerings. And I did so until I met Mark Fisher at a mastermind event when I was working with Joel Coleman, and really decided I wanted to shift my focus to growing the brick and mortar, like my business, my studio, even more so, and reaching more humans than just the online capacity. So met him there, and me and a fellow girl that were also in the mastermind together, we just, stalked Mark until he was like, okay, I'll start this business coaching thing. And then, here we are. It's been great.
Oh, it's been such a dream watching your business progress through all those stages you mentioned, because I feel like I've had a front row seat to the Venus Fitness show.
You really have. You've helped tremendously, like, just to give you mad props, because, the accountability and like, I want to do this thing. And you're like, you can do it. Like, you didn't say so in so many words, but like, essentially it's like, you can do it. And this is how you're going to do it. And then you're like, rip the Band-Aid. And I'm like, okay, I told Michael I was going to do the thing, so I have to do it. And that's how like all of my life has been since I've met you.
I love that. Well, I remember my first impression of hearing like, oh, Mark's like, hey, this person Diane's going to want to be in our group, and she runs a pole dancing studio. I was like, oh, what the hell do I know about pole dancing studios? How am I going to help her? But it all worked out. It all
did. It really did. For the best, actually. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks for the intro, and shout out to Jill Coleman. I feel like she comes up on this podcast a lot.
I love Jill. I still love her. We go back and forth in the DMs sometimes.
Yeah,
so
she's the best. And honestly, if people want to develop their business online, there's no one better. There's just
for
no one
sure.
better.
I mean, I get shiny object syndrome every once in a while, and I still think like I want to do that too. But I have to tell myself I can. I'm picking this horse and I'm riding it, which is the business, the business in person. But she's definitely your girl for that, for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 things I think I want to pick your brain about today. And both of them are unique ways that you get more clients through the door. The number one thing people want me to talk about in this podcast is how, as a gym owner, can I get more people through the door? And there's a few ways that you do it, I think, that really work for you, that I want to walk through with folks to see. And the first one is actually about your podcast, Boss Bitch Radio. You actually have a podcast where you create content for your gym members.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah,
for other trainers. It's for people who you want to work with you, who you want to bring in and have clients at the gym.
for
And so I
sure.
want to talk through about, like, where did that idea come from and how did you get started?
I think like a lot of people that probably start podcasts, they think like I should have did this a lot sooner. And I definitely kick
Mm,
myself for not starting it sooner, but it was probably perfect timing when I did. So it's coming on 2 years that I've had it. And essentially it was solely like for selfish reasons. I was like, I need this passion project. I just need something to like have a mic and just rant about stuff that like I
yep.
hear in the fitness industry so much. And a lot of it is heavily based around like my experience in bodybuilding and coaching athletes and women in bodybuilding. But a lot of that crosses over to my everyday clients that come in because they have a lot of the same concerns. Obviously, bodybuilding is like the next level of that, where it's like the extreme level. But it's like, is peanut butter protein? Like it's stuff like that I feel like I just need a place to scream these things from the fitnessy rooftops.
Yep.
And so that's how it started, was essentially that. And what it ended up being was my local clients ate that up. They loved it. They loved having a place where they could just hear me brain dump all the things because they've seen my testimonials and, our track
Mm-hmm.
history with getting women into some incredible shape. So they started sharing and it just took off. And
Mm-hmm.
it became like people in my DMs like, when's the next episode? When's the next episode? My Instagram grew organically over 2,500. Just you know, no attempt to like do anything there, just from the podcast.
Yep.
So it's been really great in that sense, that I feel like I always have something to talk about. There's always something in fitness that people still believe, that we're still trying to help dispel myths. So I do that, and it also helps with launches. So if we do some kind of program, 12-week program, 6-week program, I can talk about it and have a conversation with one of my other coaches who is also my co-host. And, we have really good banter. And so that's always engaging and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep it real. I think that's the biggest draw, is that the feedback I get is that, wow, I feel like I can relate to you. Even though you're an athlete and you're like a pro, you're just like a normal woman. I'm like, yeah. So it's very authentic, very raw. There's a lot of
Yeah.
cursing. So if you're not prepared for that, don't go listen. But but it does well in it also. I feel like it lends myself in our city as like an authority in the fitness space. And that's really what I
Mm,
wanted to do. Is I want to be the place in our city in Modesto that women can come to change the shape of their bodies and know that it's like not some fluffy, just like go do 12 burpees and like run around the block and you're going to lose 30 pounds, like do that every day. It's very straight to the point and no nonsense. And,
yeah.
and it's definitely
Yeah.
delivering.
Yeah, it's working for you. And I will talk more about how specifically the nuts and bolts of how you use it to get people through the door.
Hmm.
But one of the things I just want to highlight is that this is a medium that you really enjoy
I
for
love
creating
it.
content, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I think that can't go underestimated here because so
Hmm.
often people are talking about, well, I know I have to create more content, I have to create more content, I have to create more content, but they have such resistance to it because they haven't found a way to create content that's fun for them, that they
Yeah.
enjoy. And clearly you're like, yeah, just give me a microphone. I have shit I want to rant about, right?
Totally.
I have people I
Yeah.
want to talk to. And obviously I feel the same way. I've been doing this for several years as well. And
Hmm.
like, I don't want to be making TikToks or YouTube
No,
videos. Or I just
I
want to
don't.
talk.
I just want to
I
talk.
just, I don't even like the fact that we record these on video still, but I'm doing
Yeah.
it to because I know I should. But I
Yes.
don't even care that people see me. I just like talking. And
Right.
so, I just want to underline that that's part of what's allowed this to have such staying power for you is it's a
Hmm.
medium of creating content that really fits you.
Yeah.
And so often people choose ways to create content they don't actually like. And
Right.
so it's so hard. The other thing I love about this is that it's so shareable and people
Hmm.
get to feel real kind of intimacy with you, right?
Yes.
That part of what we're looking for when we're choosing a gym or a trainer is like getting to know, is that person for real? Like, what are they really
Hmm.
like?
Yeah.
And they can read testimonials and everything they want online, but getting to have you in their ear holes
It's very intimate.
several times. Yeah, it's a very
Yeah.
intimate experience.
Yeah.
And to get to hear your opinions about things and to be
Hmm.
authentically yourself, like, bravo, my friend. You really cracked
Very
a nut
fun.
there that a lot of people can't figure out.
For sure. I'll never forget. We were at the mall. My co-host and I believe we were at the mall somewhere, and someone's like, "Your voice is really familiar," and I was like, "Uh oh," and I was like, "Oh yeah." They're like, do you have like a podcast? And they were like guessing the name, but they could hear, like realized my voice. So it's really cool. So, it feels good to have people that enjoy it and share it
Yeah.
and find value in it for sure.
That's amazing. So you mentioned a few ways already that you use the podcast to promote launches of things, and
Hmm.
certainly we've talked a little bit already about how it helps you connect with people. But you can talk a little bit about ways that you turn a podcast listener into a client. Like, what do those pathways typically look like?
Um, Generally, we'll come up with like a content idea. If I'm trying to launch, for example, we have our nutrition coaching program, right? It's a 12-week
Mm-hmm.
program. It's called Ditch Deprivation. And so, leading up to that launch, what we'll do is usually a 3-part series of like, the first part is, we talk about macros and dieting. And so we give each series like a title that they all kind of link together. So you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten a lot of feedback from people all over the place that are like, wow, I learned so much just from these 3 podcasts. So they live there if anybody wants to go listen, but we'll do them at the beginning of the launch. And we'll usually have in the show notes somewhere for them to opt in if they want to get on the wait list. So we don't open it up all year round. We have very specific and strategic days around the launch, and we'll capture their email, and that's when we'll start like an email sequence, and then also really lots of calls to action, like follow us on Instagram and all these things. So they're sort of in all of our spheres in some capacity. I even have like my YouTube linked in there. Um, and then that way, when it comes time to launch the program, I'll have my sequence of emails that goes out and connecting with those folks to, the wait list first and then opening it up to the broader audience. But generally, when we launch that program, because we've done so much lead in and we're known for it, and we only open at specific times of the year, we sell out generally before we even really have to go like public. We'll sell it out to the wait list first or a clientele in the studio.
Mm. Yeah,
So lots of
that's
just
amazing.
redirecting
Yeah,
people, social media, links in the show notes, and
yeah.
capturing them some way.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think, for every podcast, similar to what we do for this podcast, there's evergreen stuff that you can always direct people to do. Join our
Hmm.
email list, follow us on Instagram, follow us on, whatever that may be. And I think that's always fantastic. But I also love the strategy you're mentioning here is that leading up to a launch, the content of the podcast can start to speak to the topic and start to
Yes.
speak to the pain points you're trying to solve in that upcoming program. So that program gets launched, it solves all of these pain points you've been discussing in the last
Hmm.
several episodes, which I think is fantastic. I think
Yeah.
it's a great way to go. And
Yeah.
and it strings together in a way that that content is there. Now it's evergreen for your clients to refer to,
Hmm.
but also in the moment primes them for registering for whatever you're selling next. And I want to talk about
Yes.
another program you do in a second, your glute camp. But before we do that, can you just talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the podcast? Because some people hesitate to take on something new like a podcast because they
Mm.
worry about just the production of it. So how have you made
Yes.
that doable for you?
I'll say that was the main thing that held me back because I have years upon years of content. Content was not the issue for me. Content, you guys, is so easy. Literally, you can just go on your Instagram stories and say, ask me a question, and do it that often enough to people so people get used to seeing that. They start to get brave and ask questions, and like every
Mm,
question can be an episode if you really want it to be.
yeah.
So content, I don't want to say should, but like that can typically be the least of your worries.
Mm,
I will say the nuts and bolts and the technology of the podcast was the most terrifying thing to me.
yep.
And I knew that, like, I've listened to a lot of podcasts over the years. I knew that I didn't need to have this like crazy. I mean, you see my setup here. It's like in my office. It's not even closed off. So I have to let my whole family know, like, I'm recording. Don't come out here.
Yep.
um, but I did hire a podcasting coach because I wanted somebody to like hold my hand through that process. Like, buy this
Hmm.
mic, plug this in here, use this software. And essentially that's what I did. And I had, I want to say 5 or 6 sessions with him. And it was really mostly about like, how do I work these buttons?
Yep.
Because when I tell you that, like, I don't even know how to use, I almost said the VCR. I don't, I don't know how to turn on the TV and like use any of that. I will FaceTime my son if he's not here, if I want to watch TV. So
Hmm.
that was the terrifying part. But
Yeah.
But honestly, like even before I got on with you here, like to record for my podcast, I took a video of like, okay, let me record myself where all these chords go so I don't have to remember them. And I have it written down in a
Yep.
notebook just in case.
Yep.
And then that way it's, just like anything new, it's scary at first, but it's fine now. I get a little nervous still, even when I do
Sure.
my own recordings, just like,
Sure.
not wanting
That's exciting
to.
though. It's showtime.
Yeah.
It's like the
Yeah.
butterflies you get from putting on a show,
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, well, I think that makes sense. And here's the thing that I hear you saying, which I think is also my advice to people, is just get some help
Hmm.
the first time you do it, right? Find
For
somebody who's
sure.
done it before, and they'll tell you, just go buy this microphone, use this. For example,
Yeah.
we record on this on the platform that I'm using right now, we called Riverside. I'm like,
Hmm.
I recommend it to everyone. I don't,
Yeah.
and there's people I've hired online on Upwork, and people do some editing or make our podcast graphics. It's like if you just ask for some help. People
Hmm.
who've done it before are happy to help.
Yeah.
Podcasting, I find, is one of those creative spaces where people are so open and generous, ready to
Hmm.
collaborate, ready to share. And so I think, in the same way that you reached out and just asked for some extra help,
Yeah.
that's my same recommendation for listeners.
Yeah. And then I hired somebody to do all the editing too. So,
Mm-hmm.
he's listening to this. Well, he'll be listening to this now and like doing all the editing. And he does a fantastic job because I wasn't about to try to tackle that
Yeah.
either, because that would just be another hurdle for me to say, like, oh, I'm not doing that. I don't know how
Yeah.
to do that. So, yeah. And it's
Yeah.
worth it for sure.
Yeah. And the amount of money you spend every month on having someone help with editing, etc., more
Hmm.
than pays off if you just get one new member a month from
And
it.
that's how I look at it. It's an
That's it.
investment for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Totally
thanks
agree.
for sharing all your podcast journey. I think it's useful for our listeners because I don't think we've talked about that topic much on this podcast before. And so it's
Hmm.
kind of meta to be talking about starting a podcast on a podcast.
Right.
But I think for a lot of gym owners who haven't found their approach to creating content that they like yet,
Hmm.
podcasting might be it. Might be it. And there's a handful of
Yeah.
people in Unicorn City now who do actually have a podcast. So I
Yeah.
see more and more people doing it for their gym, but it makes sense. It makes
Hmm.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I used
Good.
to blog like back in the like back
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't have the attention span for that anymore. So and I don't know how many people are really reading blogs that much anymore when it comes to like fitness stuff, I guess. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure there are. So it just felt more me was it was just
Good.
getting behind a mic and
Good for you.
riffing. Never know
Yeah.
what's going to come out of my mouth.
That's
So
it.
that's
I think
usually why
people
people
don't.
listen.
Yeah. Keep them on the edge of their seat, right? That
Yeah.
people don't read anymore, right? They want to watch a video of that same information.
Yeah.
Even now, when I go look for how to do something or some information I'm looking for, I usually look for a video first
Hmm.
because it's just so much easier.
Yeah.
So
I don't
yeah,
want to read
same.
instructions.
Well, let's switch gears. I know I want to spend some time on another topic too, which is one of the second ways that you get more people in the door is you
Mhm.
do kind of a 6-week program you call the glute camp, so butt
Yes.
program. And I think you said
Correct.
you do this about twice a quarter, so it's a regular way to get people in
Yeah.
the door, and it's kind of like a high barrier offer, so it's
Hmm.
not as cheap as like a 2-week trial. It's a
Right.
6-week program, but this has been a consistent way for you to get more members in. So can you just talk a little bit about how it works?
Sure. So, another thing that we're pretty much known for in our city is obviously with the bodybuilding piece of it comes a great glutes because it's
Uh-huh.
generally a byproduct of lifting weights. And so we really wanted to capitalize on that. It's kind of like the hot thing. It's been the hot thing for a minute. If anybody's on Instagram and follows like Brett Contreras or the
Yeah,
Glute Guru or any of these guys.
it's all
And so
butts.
yeah.
Yep.
And so we wanted to really run with that. And we created a 6-week program where clients come in twice per week and they work with a trainer. And it is, I don't want to say it depends on what we classify as small group. It's still
Mm-hmm.
small. It's not large. It's a maximum of 6 women in a session. And you travel with those 6 women for the duration of the 6 weeks, which is also great because they get to know each other. There's that camaraderie built into, and it's $399 for the 6-week course. And essentially, what we do, it's like a closed cart, open cart model type thing where it's like the cart's open, go register. And as you can imagine, like 6 spots go pretty fast for
Mm-hmm.
a time slot. And we generally run 3 time slots per session. So, for example, we'll have like a 5 a.m., a 6 a.m., and a 6 p.m. time slot within that like 6-week course. So
Mm-hmm.
essentially, we can enroll 18 people every time we run the session. And it's been really good for people who've been on the fence and they're not sure if they want to do a membership, and they just kind of want to do this one thing that's very targeted, because most women want to work on their glutes and their legs. So they'll come in that way, which is great because we can do a session of 6 women and like have some newbies in there and like make that work. So it is essentially a medium barrier offer where there's no
Yep.
commitment beyond the 6 weeks, and they can come and like test the waters and see if they really want to like marry us. But a lot of times what they do is they'll just continue doing 6-week session after 6-week session. And in between, so like around the holidays, we'll have a little bit of lag time. They'll generally purchase like a pack of sessions and come and take our regular sessions in the meantime. So yeah, it's been a really great lucrative addition to our membership model for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Well done, my friend. I think it sounds a lot like at Mark Fisher Fitness, we have Snatched in 6 weeks, which is a
Yeah.
6 week program we do multiple times per year. Feels very similar. And that
Hmm.
too for us has been great at, especially early on, getting brand new people in to
Hmm.
mix with the people who've been there. And we have some people just like you who just keep doing that program.
Yeah.
They just kind
Yeah.
of, they like that model. They like to go all in for 6 weeks and then take a little break and then go all in again. So that's super smart. Can you just talk a little bit about your conversion process from the program to membership? So how do you try and get people in the 6 week program to convert to membership afterwards?
Generally at the 4-week mark, we start planting the seed. And we'll either, chat with them about, we meaning the head trainer who leads this program. We'll start kind of
Mm-hmm.
getting a feel for this. Are you wanting to do a membership? Are you wanting to do another session? And we really try to capture them at that point. And I don't want to say like in a sense of like FOMO, because it is essentially a little bit of FOMO. Like that next
Yeah.
glute camp is going to fill up really fast. So if you're not going to do that, then like what are you going to do to kind of keep these results going? And a lot of times because they're in our space and they see the other clients doing, the regular membership style, which is the same style of training, it's just under a membership. They'll see people doing like upper body or a full body
Mm-hmm.
session or something like that, and then like, oh, okay, maybe I do want to come in and do some upper body too. And um and so it really is a lot, because it's such a small group. There's a lot of conversation that's going on, and she becomes very familiar with them over the course of that time, seeing them twice a week.
Yep.
And a lot of times they'll eventually they would prefer to do a membership, because they will get a little more attention, because it's 4 clients to 1 trainer in a membership model versus the groups setting where
Yeah.
it's 6 to
That
1.
makes sense. I love that you start early, right? Starting at week 4 in the program to start to plant the seed and have those conversations makes so much sense. It gives you time to actually have the
Hmm.
dialogue with them about what the
Yeah.
right next step is. And do you ever incentivize them with some sort of any discount or anything?
Um, I think the only thing we've done in terms of incentivizing is when there's been, particularly for membership, is when there's been a
Hmm.
long lag time between glute camps.
Sure.
And I will let the girls, because I know they're jonesing to like get into the next one, but it's maybe like a 6-week break in between because of the holidays, or just weird holidays are in there.
Hmm.
I'll incentivize those girls to 10% off of like a pack of sessions, just to
Sure.
get them through until the next glute camp if I know they're not ready to commit to a membership. And almost every single person takes me up on that.
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's amazing. I think it's great the fact that at the 4 weeks you start talking about it, and the end of the 6 weeks you're saying, well, either register for the next glute camp or become a member.
Yeah.
And if there's a bigger gap, I'll give you a discount to do a pack in the meantime. Right? I
Hmm.
think that having those options makes a ton of sense. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there's any listeners out there who are thinking, yeah, damn, I should have a program like this, something
Hmm.
that's more than a week or two trial,
Yeah.
something that's a little longer where I can get to know the people, they can get to know us. Where do they start? Thinking back to maybe before you had a program like this, how do you recommend people get started?
I think a lot of times overthinking it is a problem. Like, oh, in terms of like what that like we all know what to do as trainers. We should at this point, right? We should know like how we can deliver that process to a client in terms of getting them a good workout. I think it's going to come in reverse engineering the marketing strategy behind that, and just making sure you
Mhm.
give yourself enough time and not trying to do something in like 2 weeks and pull
Yep.
something off. Um, I've found success in both doing 6-week and 12-week type of programs. But if you've never done something where you've added, sort of an addition to your membership model, maybe start with like a 6-week program, a couple times a week. I've found that the smaller group tends to work a little bit better because you get to see these people. It's not so big. They don't get lost in the sauce. And then start talking it up, give yourself a good 6-week runway up until the program to start talking about it to your members. Is this going to be something that's an add-on for them? Maybe they get a discount, start getting the buzz there. That is going to be your low-hanging fruit in terms of people that already know, like, and trust you, that are probably going to trust you to want to take them through something that's more accountable, like a hyper-focused 6-week program. And maybe find some way to incentivize them to have friends to sign up. That's going to be another easy way. And then just start, if you don't have an email list, start talking it up to your email list. Another great way that I've found when I'm starting something new is that I'll oftentimes do a like early bird pricing, and it has a very set expiration date. And that way that kind of hooks them in to sign up quicker and gives you a little bit of like momentum to be excited that, okay, this thing is going to really lift off the ground.
Yeah, it starts to feel real once people
Yeah.
register, right?
Yeah. So yeah, those are just a few of the things that we typically do, but I do hit the email sequence pretty hard to get, people need to see things more than once. I hear a lot of fellow business owners that are like, I put it out on social media and like nobody wanted to do it. I'm like, how many times? Once. Like, it doesn't work
Yeah.
that way. I'm annoying AF. Okay.
Yeah.
Like I will
Yep.
be all up in the stories every day, obviously with other content, but for sure you have to keep
Yeah.
talking it up.
Yeah, well said, my friend. I think that last point is also crazy important because so people forget that because you sent a million emails and made a million Instagram posts and stories doesn't mean that everyone saw all of them. They
Right.
maybe saw one of those things.
For sure.
Right?
You have to try
Right.
different
So,
times.
yeah, you might be
Yeah.
sick of talking about it, but people have not heard about it a million times.
No.
So that's awesome. I also want to highlight the first thing you said, which I think is really a critical piece of advice, is that if you want to start a program like this, give yourself enough time. You need a
For
long
sure.
runway, not only to develop the program, but to sell it.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, starting 6, maybe even 8 weeks ahead,
Yeah.
talking it up, planting the seed, telling people when early bird will start.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a podcast or a platform where you can start to create content around that topic, to
Yeah.
say like content around glutes,
Mm-hmm.
content around
Exactly.
nutrition,
That's what
right?
we
Like
do.
that helps people get in the mindset of like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
I need some of that, right? And
Definitely.
so bravo,
It's a
well
great
done.
time for testimonials too,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you have
I
any
think the
client
one thing I'll
testimonials.
yeah, testimonials, I think, yeah, you're right, is could be huge for this. The other thing that I'll highlight that you did really well is you found a pain point that people are willing to invest time and money in, which is I want a better butt.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
butts and legs. Like
Yeah.
your avatar well enough to know, like, yeah, everyone wants better butts and legs that I work
Mm-hmm.
with. Right. And so I think that's also maybe my invitation to you, dear listeners, is that if you want to start a program like this, cool. Who's it for? And what do
Right.
you absolutely know is a core pain point of that avatar that you can
Mm-hmm.
help solve with a program like this. And
Exactly.
I think it's got to fit the program, right? If your core avatar wants to get like crazy strong and muscular and put on a
Mm-hmm.
ton of muscle mass, you're probably not going to be able to help much in 6 weeks.
No,
Right? So it's got to match the thing
for
you can
sure.
deliver. But
Has to make
you do
sense.
that so well. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. You can
Yeah.
make some good progress on your glutes in 6 weeks, and then enough
Definitely.
progress that they want to keep going.
Yes. And
Yeah.
one thing that our trainer does really well that actually is a good tip as well is, for those clients during that 6 weeks, she tracks their lifts as well. So like
Hmm.
their main lifts, like on a hip thrust or, we have a glute drive machine, like there's a few specific machines and these women get very excited every time they come in. They're like, oh my God, when I first started, I was doing, 95 pounds and now I'm doing 205 at the end of 6 weeks. So for them, that's, super rewarding, especially as, a lot of times women in early on were conditioned to be like rewarded by the scale moving. So this is like how this is also a piece of my mission is like getting women to be excited about the weights on the bar going up. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well
it's
said, my
super fun.
friend. Yeah, well, thanks for doing this. I'm going to have to wrap it up because I think we're at our time. But this was fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
the fact that we got to talk about your podcast and we got to talk about your glute camp, I think both of those are just great examples of how to get people through the door in ways that
Mhm.
have been fun for you, authentic for you, successful for you. And so thank you so much for sharing. As we
Yeah,
wrap
thanks for
up,
having me.
if people want to check out your podcast, check out Venus Studio, where can they find you online?
So the studio, if you want to go peek around on our website, is venusfitnessstudio.com. My podcast is Boss Bitch Radio, and I'm over on Instagram, Diane Flores _IFBB_pro. You can check me out there. That's where I do a lot of my content. Most of my clients are generated from there, and then they also feed over to the Venus Fitness Studio Instagram.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Yeah.
listeners, go follow her. Go follow Diane. She has such great content, and if you want some inspiration for how to be a content machine, there's no better role model out there. Go follow
Oh, I
Diane.
appreciate that. It's fun. I love
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, and I just want to say thanks for being in Unicorn Society all these years. It's been such a blast
Oh my
watching your
gosh.
business continue to grow and thrive. So
Yeah.
it's
You
been
guys
such a
better be
treat to.
doing it forever because I'm not going anywhere. I love
I'm not
it.
going anywhere either. So,
Okay, good,
yeah,
good.
awesome. Well, thanks again for the great chat, Diane. And dear listeners, if you found this content valuable, leave us a review anywhere you're listening. Give us those 5 stars and email me. Let me know what you want us to talk about next. Michael@businessforunicorns.com. Have a great day, Diane. And listeners, I'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi again. I want to remind you about an awesome free resource we created for gym owners. Have you ever found yourself overwhelmed in your gym? Just not sure where to put your efforts to get to the next level? Well, head to gymownerreportcard.com and you can access a totally free assessment that will help you identify exactly where to focus your efforts so you can get crystal clear on the next best steps to create the gym of your dreams. One more time, that's gymownerreportcard.com.